Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic show. It's episode 356. We've got a great guest with us. We've got Jonathan Farley. Jonathan, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers?
Yeah, I'm Jonathan Farley. I've lived a pretty interesting life. I've been in medicine for over 17 years, and just recently, probably 4 years ago, had a major life change, and we'll talk about that soon, but kind of dove into the WordPress online course market and kind of reinvented myself doing that. So started a company, and we're really thriving on that, and just want to talk a little bit about that too.
That's great. And I've got my great co-host, Cindy Nicholson. Cindy, would you like to introduce yourself to the new listeners and viewers?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, John. I'm Cindy Nicholson from thecoursewhisperer.com, and I help entrepreneurs who want some help creating online courses, help them put them together to make them great.
Yes, listeners and viewers, I've been demoted. I'm John now, but we thought it'd be a bit confusing having two Jonathans. So for this episode, I'm going to be John, and we got Jonathan Farley. And before we go into the main part of our interview, folks, I just want to quickly mention one of our great sponsors, and that's WP Fusion. And what is WP Fusion? Well, in your technology membership learning management system, in your technology stack, obviously you should have WordPress, but also you should have a CRM like Active Campaign, Drip. There's a numerous number of them. And what WP Fusion does, it puts the communication between your WordPress site and your CRM on steroids. Basically, it's mind-bending, the information you can share between the two systems, and give you great insights and automation of your marketing strategies. So if that sounds interesting, and it should be, go to the WP Fusion website and go to their package page. And if any of their packages look interesting for you, you get a special offer that's only offered to our WP-Tonic viewers and listeners, and that's 25% of any of the packages. All you have to do is put in the word WP-Tonic, all uppercase, one word, and you get 25%, and that's only offered on the WP-Tonic podcast show. So into our interview, over to Cindy.
Thank you, John. So Jonathan, I heard you on another podcast recently and was super inspired by your story, because I don't think anyone ever starts out to be course creators or membership creators. So Jonathan, if you don't mind, just if you could tell us a little bit about, yourself and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. So many years ago, I was in college for video production. I was a television production major, and then I looked at that and said, that's really not for me right now. One, I didn't want to, the way my life was going, I wanted to be home more and stuff like that. So I had to go into medicine after a crazy whitewater rafting trip. So then I became a paramedic, worked as a paramedic for probably 16, 17 years, up to probably 4 or 5 years ago. But then also halfway through that stint, I decided to get my RN. And everybody knows that when you're working as a nurse, life can be stressful. Went from 155 pounds solid muscle to about 480 pounds in those years. So I gained a whole bunch of weight. And then had some pretty major medical setbacks, and then decided that weight loss surgery was the path for me. Went through all that coaching and stuff like that, and I noticed a real big problem in the weight loss community. Based off of how they were teaching people how to survive with this, the stigma of weight loss surgery and stuff like that. So I saw this huge hole, and then I looked into how can I fix it. So I used my medical knowledge, and I created a online service to help people navigate. Because one thing is, when you're going through weight loss surgery, you have to do a 6-month prep. Well, the 6-month prep was like one meeting a month. So I was going through this, and I was seeing all these people make all these horrible choices. So I decided to help them out. So I got the real medical knowledge of how to actually deliver the best outcome for, with my medical knowledge, with the help of dietitians and PAs and nurse practitioners, to actually give them the right knowledge. So I developed a course. So I didn't knew nothing about WordPress at that point. So what I did was I downloaded it and I started going through it, and it was really easy. Watched a couple of Adam from WP, his tutorials, and then jumped on that bandwagon and started learning myself. Got onto Lifter LMS, and I actually built my whole entire course. Had it marketed and launched within 2 weeks of downloading it, and I only had 2 weeks of content when I first launched it. And I launched but I knew the stuff. I just didn't have it actually shot and stuff like that. So I think the first go around I sold I don't remember. It's been so long. I think it was 40 or 50 seats in this thing. And then it took off so well, I had 4,000 the next time. And then it just blew up from there and blew up from there because there were so many people who, I created a presence of myself that people jumped onto, but also the knowledge that they were getting. So we started a company that was online courses. And then within 2 years, I decided that I didn't want to be doing the weight loss help anymore. I myself had moved on past that. So I decided to sell the company. So we sold the company for a really good chunk of change to an actual doctor conglomerate. So they now run the platform under their umbrella, and they actually help people in Mexico and stuff like that who fly there. They now have good quality training for their surgeries. So kind of started this whole movement for that. So it was real nice. So.
And where have you taken it since then in terms of, you created this course, you gathered all of that amazing experience of doing it. Now where are you now with your business in terms of transitioning from that?
I started a company with a gentleman by the name of Mark Mays, and we have Susan Wheeler, and it's called Tools for Course Creators. And that's what we do. We actually help people with getting the right tools. Because one thing I noticed is going through this thing is there's so much stuff out there. And a lot of people get bad information, or not really bad information. That's the wrong way of saying it. It's not the right information for them. I'm doing a webinar on Friday on cameras. You can buy a $2,000 camera, but if you have if your computer can't edit that huge amount of footage, it's useless to you. So that's what we do. We actually team you up. We listen to you. We give you courses on microphones and cameras and how to build in WordPress, all that stuff. So you don't have to guess. You just know. So that's what we do. And it's been going very successful. We're about to relaunch we did our alpha testing. We did our beta testing. Now we're actually launching the whole thing on Friday.
Awesome. So. Congratulations for that. That's fantastic. I love how, you saw the need or the opportunity, created something, and now you're kind of working your way back to your original roots. So
yeah,
fantastic, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I've got this question for you, Jonathan. When it comes to WordPress and the major SaaS competitors like Kajabi, Teachable, Learnable, what are the real strengths of WordPress compared to its leading SaaS competitors, and what are its weaknesses?
Well, the number one thing I think is you own your platform. That's, I think, it's yours. So if you are on Kajabi, you say that. So, or, any of these guys, say they decide to sell their platform and it goes downhill quick. Your whole platform was built on their business model. So that's one of the biggest things is you don't own your styling. You may be subject to what they want. If they change their platform, your business model is not going to work as well. That's one thing that I noticed. I wanted to be in control of every aspect of what I did. So
that's the main one. Any other strengths that you think WordPress has compared to the SaaS competition?
I think because so many third-party developers can help out, and just the community of WordPress is so strong that if you have a problem, there's somebody out there who can fix it for you. You may not know how to do it. You may not have the ability to. It may take you 6 years to learn what that guy who knows it can do in 20 minutes, and you don't need to learn the huge thing. But the other thing is, 4 years ago, I didn't know any of this stuff, and now I'm considered in the LMS in Lifter community a pretty big expert. I can help a lot of people, and that's just because it's not easy to learn, but it's easy to implement and find people who know it very well.
Yeah, just a added question. I think one of the major technologies that have changed the landscape where it comes to WordPress is page builders.
Oh yeah,
and how they have developed over the past 2, maybe 3 years. First of all, would you agree with that? And do you think it really has changed how people should consider WordPress compared to its leading SaaS competitors?
Oh yeah. See, adding on, like I am a very big expert in Elementor. I can do things in Elementor that most people would just they see what it does and their jaw drops, and you go, that's really not that hard if you just know what you're doing. And it really it makes it so the layperson can pick up advanced skills very quickly. But also like there's also Elementor, Divi, Beaver Builder. There's actually competition, and competition is good in this environment. But it seems like they all work together, and like one person builds this, so they go, oh, I can do that, so I can. So it actually creates a good competitiveness there. But also, as far as the ease of use, it builds in. Like we were talking about WP Fusion. When WP Fusion linked up with Elementor, now they link. I can have one course have 7 different paths now because of tagging systems. And it makes it so I can now do like a choose your own adventure type stuff. So it opens up the ability of what a simple course can be by these third-party tools.
Yeah, that's great. Cindy, got a question?
It's interesting just in terms of the whole conversation, because, whenever I'm talking to people, it's always, what platform should I use? What platform should I use? And the reservation always around WordPress is the whole fact that I have to do it myself. But I think kind of to your point, Jonathan, that's no longer the case anymore. There's so much support to allow you to be able to build it yourself, but also have the help behind it. That kind of really negates that argument altogether. Yeah. The ability to own it yourself and have the ability to customize it the way that you want to really is a tall order to overcome. So yeah. Thank you for that. I'm going to kind of go back to some of the comments in terms of you talking about your journey. In terms of drilling down into some comments that you made, because I'm really quite interested. So when you're talking about launching your course for the first time, you said you maybe had around 40 people sign up. Mm-hmm. And then the next time that went up to 4,000. Mm-hmm. So I guess number one, how much time was between your first launch and your second launch? And then what did you do in order to be able to, increase your sales by that much?
Social media is your biggest ally and also your biggest resource. You have to. So I created for the bariatric, people didn't want to be on Facebook talking about their weight loss problems. But the thing is, they're on with Facebook all the time. So what I did was I opened myself up and said, hey, this is what it is. So people could join a private group and have conversations there where people didn't know they were part of it. And that started the ball rolling. So our Facebook group went gangbusters. It was a great conversation. But then with social learning added on with Lifter LMS, it was able to take it off social learning or social network and put it on my site. So now people were on my site talking back and forth and created community on there. So that opened up huge where people knew, like, if you were on here, it was trusted information. So you weren't, and we actually had, so we took the layperson off of Facebook and put them on an expert panel with dietitians and stuff like that. But we had tier system, like if you paid this amount, you got access to this level of people and this level of people, And one of my biggest accomplishments came from a mastermind group that I was part of. We were just talking back and forth on Chris's office hours thing, and one of the people had an idea. He goes, what if you did this, looked into charging insurances? What would it take? So I said, I'm a nurse. I can look into that. Looked into it and found out it was not as hard as it looked, but I had to have the credentials. So because of who I was and what I had and the contacts I had, it took me about 3 weeks. And then I was able to charge Kaiser. But the thing, and like all these little companies, I wasn't going to the doctor's office anymore. I could walk into a doctor's office and say, look, it's going to cost your patient nothing. It's going to cost you nothing. And since they're already pre-approved, I just need a code. And then it went, blew up. But the thing is, my results spoke for my product. I wasn't just so people noticed, and I had one doctor's office actually cancel with me because they had a 47% decrease in their need for surgeries because people were learning how to do it. And I always say, like, if I knew what I know now, I wouldn't have needed the surgery, but I would never have known it without going through this process. So that was one of the things, like, so how I worked it was, going back to your comment, I had 2 weeks. On month 3, I relaunched. So, and then so it was a 6-month prep course, a 3-month pre-op or post-operative course, and then a course on always. So that's basically how it went. So you first signed up for your 6 months, and that was, if you didn't have insurance or you were private pay, it was about $700 for the whole thing. And then the 3-month post-op was an add-on, but if you had already bought the pre-op, it was a very much discounted. So I created a community where if I hooked you in the pre-op and pre-surgery, I had you the whole way. Right. And then because people created, and one thing I did was, I wasn't even planning on doing this when I first started, but I have a podcast that I may even relaunch it. But I did a 30-minute podcast every single day for the first year of surgery. Wow. So I actually so you hear me, and this was the biggest thing. The day of surgery, all loopy and being weird, and then you hear me the day after, and then you hear the struggle I had on day 4, and then how on day 7 it got better. So, just kind of that kind of stuff. So people really liked that, and then people got a connection with me, And one of my greatest stories I always tell, and I like telling this one, is at 9 months, I had lost 215 pounds. And 3 years before that, I had done a Spartan race. It took me 6 hours to do the Spartan race. And it was just a 4-mile run, but it's, jumping over obstacles, going in the mud, doing all that stuff. My son at the time, this was 2.5 years ago, but he wanted to do it with me. And they had a kids race. Because of traffic and stuff, I couldn't get to the race on time, so my race got pushed back. So I only had like 57 minutes to do the whole entire race, then be able to do his race. And mind you, it took me 6 hours before. So I did the whole entire race, and this one was the easiest one I've ever done, because I was so much smaller and so much more agile. But I finished the race, and then I heard them announce that his race was starting. So I ran 4 miles, then ran a half mile to his race start, then ran his whole race. And halfway through, my son looks at me and says, Dad, I'm just like you. And when you go from somebody who was 500, almost 500 pounds, to when you were sitting on the chair for Christmas, then all of a sudden your son's saying that's the life-changing stuff. That's what course creation did for me, was I was able to create this community and stuff like that. So that's why I decided to start Tools for Course Creators, because I've been a nurse for so long, ICU, ER, all that aggressive stuff. I can still do it, but this is more of a passion for me right now.
That's great. We're going to go for a break, folks. We're going to be coming back discussing with Jonathan Farley, WordPress, learning management systems, and his life story in general. We'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. I think we've had a fascinating conversation. So, Jonathan, when it comes to actual building their course, where do you see some people making some fundamental mistakes that seem to happen on a regular basis?
I think they don't plan out their course first. You got to have something planned out first. You have to have an idea of what you want, and don't over design. I always call it death by design. They want every single feature that they see out there. And I always say, what are you trying to teach? Are you teaching how to work on a car? Why do you need this fly-in and this crazy stuff when the guy just wants to learn how to change his alternator? You know, and also your demographic. If you're doing an arts and crafts building, then you need more fun, interactive stuff like that. But if your demographic is a logger, that fun and stuff like that's not going to work for you. So that's the kind of stuff, is learn your demographic, learn what you're preaching for or what you're building for, and don't overdo it. Death by design is going to get you every time. And the other thing is, how many people buy everything up front before they have their design? And one thing about WordPress, a lot of plugins are yearly. You pay this amount per year. So then you've took 11 and a half months to build your course. You're ready to launch, and you realize, oh, I have another huge bill now that I have to pay before I made any money. So it's just plan, and get with a good coach. Get with a good coach who's done it before, who can coach you and help you and assist you. Like, community's huge, but get with somebody who can actually help you and be like, okay, that works, that doesn't work. And so kind of like a guide. I think that's another huge thing.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, because I think people just get kind of hung up with themes, plugins. They are important, but I think it's getting the right advice at the right moment, isn't it, Jonathan?
Mm-hmm. It really is.
Really save you a lot of aggravation and a lot of. So this delve a little bit into WordPress, because you're well known as part of the Lifter LMS community, but the two main juggernauts seem to be Lifter LMS and LearnDash. What do you see as the strengths and weaknesses of those two particular plugins, Jonathan?
I think one of the biggest ones, is LearnDash is a great platform as well. One thing that I have always talked about is I feel like Lifter LMS has created a true community. Chris Badgett, you have a question, you can call him, you can message him and he'll answer. He's there for you. And he actually helps you. So you actually get a community base.
Do you think he actually sleeps?
I don't know. No, I think he's up almost as much as I do. But he has a good team behind him that actually builds a good. So like we've actually at my company, we own both platforms. We pay for both plugins, and we seem to always go back to Lifter, not for the features per se, but the community it's created. And that's one thing I like about it. And but Lifter is more of it's almost a full service. They almost have everything. But the good thing is I can call up Chris and I can say, hey, let's work on that group integration, Chris. That's my little plug from my business partner. We're always nagging at him. But that's one thing, is a good group's outlet is stuff like that. Like having instructors be able to take students and put them in different areas and stuff like that. That's one thing that needs to be worked on. But they all work, but you got to stick with your platform and get one. But what I like about Lifter is it has membership built in. It has a payment gateway built in. It has the voucher system built in. That the voucher system was one of the biggest selling points for me. Was I was able to create a code that could be used 1,000 times. So I just give that code to the clinic and say, here's your code. You give it out. And then they bought 1,000 seats, prepaid for them all. And then when their code was getting full, they would call me up and then, go from there. So being able to do that was huge. And then there was a little niche that I needed to fix. So I found a developer who could make it so I could regenerate a voucher code every time. So they could actually it would regenerate a new code for them every time that would then talk to Lifter and through an API integration. And then I didn't have to do anything. It was all automated. And then if the clinic got low, they purchased more vouchers and then the system recognized it. So just finding those tools. And that's why I started Tools for Course Creators, is finding the right tool for the right job.
That's great. Cindy?
Yeah, maybe I can piggyback that comment just in terms of, you decide to go with WordPress, you choose, say, Lifter LMS is, the platform you want to use. What are some of the basic things that you think should be included as part of that course in terms of what elements you want to add to have like a robust course offered for your clients?
Yeah. So my wife is a teacher. And so it's always good to have somebody in education behind you. And one thing she always says is, you can teach somebody anything, but you need to be able to test them. You have to be able to test their knowledge. It doesn't mean like you have to grade them, but there needs to be something where so the ability to have quizzes built in and assignments already built in. That's huge. And they build it and then make them as easy as you can. Don't make them feel like they're in school, but make them have to answer the right questions to advance. And that's one area I think you should always strive to have, is some type of question and answer kind of thing. And a good way to submit data, forms and stuff like that. And that's one thing Lifter has really well, is their form integration. They integrate very well with Gravity Forms, Ninja Forms, WP Forms, all those form builders. So what's great about that is I can put a stop that you're 3/4 away through a lesson and you have to, fill out this form to advance. Well, you can use that 1,000 different ways. You just have to think of the box a little bit,
Yeah, it's there's so much more to creating a course than just kind of adding the content on there, and in terms of having them do some sort of activity or assignment, and then adding some forms. I think that, as you say, there's some really neat things you can do with that in order to kind of help really the learner take that material and do something with it. So that's good.
Yeah.
John.
Yeah, we're going to wrap up the podcast part of the show, but Jonathan's agreed to stay on, and we're going to have some bonus content, listeners and viewers. Jonathan, how can people find out more about you, what you're up to, and especially your upcoming webinar? Can you give a URL, and so people might be able to join you for this webinar?
Yeah, so we are going to be doing a webinar. It's going to be streamed live on Lifter LMS's Facebook page, because Chris Badgett is going to be joining us. You can also, it's going to be streamed on YouTube. We're going to be sending out some documentation on that. You can also go to our website, toolsforcoursecreators.com. The link for the webinar will probably be up within the hour. Sign up for the webinar. One cool thing we're doing is we're going to be going over cameras, all the way from point and shoots all the way up to very high-end production cameras. I have a $3,000 Blackmagic camera that I'm going to show you guys what it can and can't do, and when you need it and when you absolutely do not need it, and when buying a camera could break you, because if you shoot this great course but you can't edit down the footage, how it's useless to you. And then the other thing is we're going to be giving away my favorite camera for course creators, for beginner course creators. So if you sign up for the webinar, somebody on that call will be winning a very, very nice camera, and we'll be giving that away. But you have to be on the call. And then if you watch the replay, we are going to be doing another giveaway 3 weeks after the webinar for anybody who watched afterwards. There's a little quiz at the end of the webinar that if you pass it, then we're going to be giving away, Lifter LMS has decided to give away a Universe bundle. So that's only going to be for the replay people. So, and you can actually win both if you answer the questions. So if you're really, that's what we're doing. So
that sounds
and I won't give away won't tell you guys what camera I'm giving away until you're actually on the call. So
very nice. Very wise. Cindy, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to, Cindy?
So if you want to create a course and need a little bit of help of how to design it and put it all together, you can certainly reach out to me. I can be found at thecoursewhisperer.com.
And I'm the founder of WP-Tonic. We specialize in the development of WordPress-driven membership learning management systems, maintain them, and give you ongoing support. So Cindy's the brains, and we're the support and technology partners that you're looking for. We're going to leave now, but I'd like to wish you, listeners and viewers, a happy Christmas and New Year, and we'll be back in the first of the new year with a discussion between me and Cindy. We haven't totally decided what we're going to be discussing, but I'm sure it's going to offer you some great value. Like I say, we're going to continue the discussion with Jonathan in the next few minutes, and we'll be back soon in the new year. See you later, folks. Bye. So, Jonathan, so webinars, how important do you think webinars are as a methodology to help build up community and membership when it comes to a membership site?
I think if you do them correctly, they will really boost your sales and also boost your community. If you do them wrong, you'll really drive people away. They need to get good content from them, but not feel like you're always selling them. I think that's a good way. And also you need to be able to cross-platform. Like when we do our webinar, we're going to be going to Facebook, YouTube, and on Zoom, and we're also going to be able to stream to Twitch and Twitter if we wanted to. I can flip one switch and go to everybody. So knowing how to do that is also pretty big. We also have some pretty advanced features we throw in there too.
So what kind of technology, what is the online platform that you're going to be using for your own?
So I use a video recording system called vMix. So I use vMix. I do multi-camera shoots. One thing that we didn't talk about was I run a pay-per-view sporting event company. So what we do is, and we actually use Lifter for that whole entire process. So when you sign up for a event, like we're doing the Fort Vancouver Championship, what it is you sign up for a membership. That's what the event is. And inside the event, there are different areas, like this is a CrossFit event. So like there's a snatch and a clean and jerk and a ladder and all that stuff. So those are courses. And inside those courses, there's the lessons are then called heats. And then what we do is we embed live stream links in those. So if you purchase your loved one's course or event, you pay $1. And then if you purchase the whole event, it's like $60. So if you only want to watch your loved one, you only pay $1. And if you want to watch the whole event, and so we do that. But that was able to take the power of Lifter and turn it into this huge money generating thing. And we do wrestling events, we do all this fun stuff, and we build it all there, and we run it all. And this year we're going to be able to. We have a studio, so we run the whole entire thing through our studio. That's why this is a green screen. I don't know if you knew that. So we can do all that stuff. We do live interviews, but we are not going to be at the event this year with our production. Just our crew's there. We're actually going to be here doing it here. So it's kind of a new age way of doing it, but thinking outside the box and making it happen.
So what about the actual webinar software? Are you using either
Zoom?
You're actually using Zoom, not Webinar Jam then?
No, we use, so what I do is we're on Zoom for the webinar, and our participants can go into Zoom, but they can also, I pull the Zoom feed into my vMix, and I restream it through vMix to all these other platforms. And
I was wondering how you were doing that, because just as a bit of a technique to our listeners and viewers, is that Zoom webinar is a great platform, but you can't push to YouTube and Facebook at the same time. You've got to choose one or the other. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering how you were doing that.
So the ability to do that goes into some pretty trickery stuff that I do, that if you join Tools for Course Creators, we'll teach you how. I love
it, Jonathan. I love it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's just, I've been doing video production for forever, but for a long time it was just a hobby, and then it turned into this huge thing. And that's one of my loves. I love shooting video. That's what I love to do, and that's why when I was able to transition from medicine, this is why we created this thing. Is it's the ability. I become kind of a like my business partner Mark. He's a microphone junkie. He has probably 500 microphones because he just won't stop buying them, but I'm the same way with cameras. It's just, but I like to play around with them, and I like to show people what they can do and what you can't do with them. And I always tell people, the best camera you have is the one, or the best camera is the one you have. Your iPhone can do anything. And when I first started bariatric support online, I went to AT&T and bought 4 iPhones on their payment plan. And my first probably 4 months was all shot on iPhones and nobody knew it. Because there's a program called Studio Switcher where you can use an iPad to connect you can do 9 different inputs, and then you have a live switcher on your iPad. So
that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Cindy?
Thanks for sharing all that, Jonathan. It's so cool to hear kind of how your business has evolved over time. And again, you're identifying gaps and you're filling the need. And
Yep.
based on your expertise that you have, it just is so amazing. So I just wanted to kind of ask a question or kind of get your insight. I kind of feel like the journey that you went through to lose all the weight that you had to lose the journey is probably very similar to that of an entrepreneur, and the struggles and the challenges that they go through, and the ups and the downs. So can you maybe share some of the lessons that you learned as you went kind of through this weight loss journey in terms of how people as entrepreneurs can apply some of those things?
I think thinking of all negatives as positives. Whenever you have a no, like, I messed this up, this didn't work, that's a great idea. That's a great thing to happen, because you know what? It's bad now. And that's the key, I think, is really huge, is not getting discouraged. You have your plan. You know what you're supposed to do, so go ahead and do it. And it's kind of crazy how, like, in high school, I was known as the theater tech. I did set design, lighting design. That was my thing. And then I went to college for video production and did all that and graduated. And the story I always tell people is I got on a road show, and I was on a road show called Do Jump, which is trapeze and stuff like that. I did the whole lighting design for them. I looked around and went, "You guys are 30. You look like you're 80." And that was the day I went, that's not for me. And then well, if somebody tells me I can't do something, I say, watch me. So I was on a whitewater rafting trip, and one of my mom's best friends, she's a nurse, and she said, you should look into medicine. And one of the guys there said, "Oh, John, you're not smart enough. You can't do that." And I went, nah. So then the next day I signed up, and I had a really good anatomy teacher who basically said, think of the body as a car, the way the car works, the intake, the output. And once they said that, that's my whole life changed, where I always use analogies to explain something. And that's how I took off. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that your story just kind of exemplifies really what it means to be an entrepreneur, in terms of, sticking through it and trying different things, and, never giving up, and, learning from your mistakes and what have you. So thank you for that, John.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when it comes to actual courses, learning management systems in Merson, do you think we've just touched the surface on how online courses could help in, because what I see is a lot of problems people are facing are in America, in Western countries, are really more around lifestyle choices,
exactly,
that lead to very chronic outcomes for them. So do you think that whole area we've only touched the surface?
Oh yeah, I think there is so much money and potential left on the table with these highly trained people who keep their mouth shut and don't do it right. I think you need to get a doctor or a nurse, like all these nurses out there. They have all these years of schooling. Why don't they start an online course where they talk about this stuff? Yes, stay within your scope of practice. Don't tell somebody to do that. Like, use your brain for that. A nurse should know what they can and can't say, and they know when to move it there. But there's lay information that people just need to know, and people know you. Like, start up, like all these doctor's offices. You have, your doctor's office clinic. Why doesn't that doctor have an online course where all their patients come there? It's secure. It's locked down. You can make it HIPAA compliant, where when they come in the door, their pre-admission stuff is already filled out, and they've already learned it, and you can give them continuing education through that. I could go I go off on all stuff. Like, that's the biggest thing, is There's so much potential dropped on. This is an internet world now. Embrace it.
Thanks for that, Jonathan. So we're going to wrap up the show now, folks. Jonathan, I think it's been a great interview, folks. We'll be back in the new year. We'll be there will be some shows before that as well. I've recorded one or two, I think. I'm losing track, folks. I've been ill myself. I had a bad cold, but I feel a bit better today. We'll be back soon, folks. See you soon. Bye.